The coffee mug slipped from Natalie Ford's hand and shattered across the marble conference table. Brown liquid spread toward the documents I'd spent 3 days preparing. Then her phone followed, clattering against the surface. She wasn't clumsy, she was making a point. "Lily, could you handle this?" Not a request. An order delivered with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I was standing by the presentation screen, about to walk everyone through the quarterly integration report. 52 people from Altitude Design Group filled the room. We'd driven 4 hours north to this lakeside conference center, supposedly here to plan next year's expansion strategy. I set down my laptop and reached for the napkins at the side station. The room went quiet. Every single person watched as I walked over and started dabbing at the spilled coffee, trying to save the documents underneath. "Be careful with those papers," Natalie said, her voice carrying across the room. "Though I guess if they're ruined you can just reprint them. That's more your speed anyway, right? The simple, repetitive stuff." A few uncomfortable laughs rippled through the crowd. I kept my eyes on the mess, soaking up coffee with napkin after napkin. The papers were already destroyed, ink bleeding into illegible smudges. "You know what this reminds me of?" Natalie's voice rang out clearer now, more confident. I looked up. She was standing with her arms crossed, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "My golden retriever, Bailey. She's incredible, actually. I trained her in less than a week to bring me things, clean up messes, follow basic commands." She paused for effect. "And she does it faster than this." The room erupted. Not polite chuckles anymore, real laughter. The kind where people lean back in their chairs and slap their knees. "I'm serious," Natalie continued, warming to her audience. "Bailey learned everything in days. Meanwhile, you've been here for 13 years? And you're still doing entry-level work like mopping up spills." More laughter. Louder this time. Someone whistled. I straightened up, the soaked napkins dripping in my hands. I looked toward the head of the table where Natalie's father sat. Raymond Ford, founder and owner of Altitude Design Group. He was grinning, his face flushed with amusement. Our eyes met for just a second. He didn't say a word. Didn't tell his daughter to stop. Just sat there enjoying the show like everyone else. I dropped the napkins on the table, walked to my seat and gathered my laptop and bag. Then I headed for the door. "Lily, where are you going?" Natalie called after me. "We're not done with the meeting." I didn't answer. Just pushed through the heavy wooden doors and stepped outside into the cold mountain air. The lake stretched out before me, perfectly still, reflecting the gray sky. I stood there for a long time, watching the water, feeling my heartbeat slowly return to normal. My hands had stopped shaking, but something else was trembling inside me. Something that had been building for years. "Let me take you back. Let me show you how I ended up here, standing outside in the freezing cold while 52 people laughed at me inside. My name is Lily Preston. 13 years ago, I was 31 and desperately searching for stable employment. My son had just turned 7, and I was managing everything on my own after his father left. Altitude Design Group was hiring for someone to coordinate their network of independent contractors and freelancers. They specialized in creating custom interior spaces, high-end residential projects, boutique hotels, exclusive restaurants. Beautiful work that cost clients hundreds of thousands. The woman before me was named Lorraine. She was 64 and preparing to retire after 23 years with the company. On my second day, she closed the door to the small office we shared and spoke quietly. "Listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. The Fords are brilliant at design but terrible at management. They don't want to invest in proper tracking systems or legal contracts or administrative overhead. They want everything handled quickly and quietly through personal connections. So here's what I did for over 2 decades, and here's what you'll need to do if you want job security." She tapped the side of her head. "Keep everything up here. Don't document it. Don't put it in their databases. Maintain the relationships personally. Make them dependent on you specifically, not on any system they could hand to someone else. That's how you become irreplaceable." "But what happens if I get sick? Or need time off?" I asked. Lorraine shrugged. "Then they scramble and figure it out. But while you're healthy and working, you'll have a job that actually pays your bills. A real job." I needed that job. Desperately. So I paid attention. Lorraine spent 3 weeks introducing me to the network she'd spent decades building. There was Antonio, who ran a custom carpentry workshop an hour outside the city. His father had started the business 40 years ago, and now Antonio worked alongside his two brothers. She introduced me to the Kowalski family, 3 generations of stonemasons who could source and shape marble, granite, and slate like artists. There was Priya, who managed a textile studio where 12 artisans created custom drapery, upholstery, and wall coverings using traditional techniques. There was Felix, a lighting designer who could manufacture one-of-a-kind fixtures that looked like sculptures. There was Graham, who had connections to import rare materials when projects demanded something exotic. Learn their names, Lorraine instructed. Learn about their families, their struggles, their wins. Remember when they need payment early, when they're going through difficult times, when they're celebrating something special. Treat them like human beings, not just vendors on a spreadsheet. They'll remember that. They'll remember you. And I did exactly that. For 13 years I nurtured those relationships. When Antonio's daughter graduated from university, I sent flowers. When the Kowalski family needed their payment 2 weeks ahead of schedule to cover emergency repairs on their workshop, I personally made sure Raymond approved it immediately. When Priya's studio flooded and destroyed half their inventory, I called her every single day for 6 weeks, checking in, making sure she knew we'd wait for her to rebuild before demanding any work. I remembered everything. Which contractor delivered the highest quality under pressure? Which one needed 3 days' notice before accepting rush work? Which family preferred formal email communication? Which one appreciated casual text messages? Who could you joke with on the phone? Who expected strict professionalism? I never wrote any of it down. Not once. No spreadsheets, no contact databases, nothing in Altitude's computer systems. Just like Lorraine taught me. Raymond never asked questions. As long as projects were completed on schedule and within budget, he stayed happy. He'd just say, "Handle it, Lily," and I did. Every single time. Over the years, Altitude grew significantly. They hired more designers, brought in marketing specialists, added project managers with impressive credentials and expensive educations. I stayed in my small office making calls, sending messages, keeping the entire contractor network running smoothly. Most people barely noticed me. I was just there, the woman who somehow made sure materials arrived when they were supposed to. Then Natalie graduated from design school 3 years ago. Raymond immediately brought her into the company, gave her a title, Creative Director of Brand Experience. She started attending meetings, offering opinions, changing things. She was loud, confident, the type of person who walked into a room expecting everyone to stop and listen. She never spoke directly to me during those first 2 years. I don't think she even understood what I did. To her, I was just someone who worked in the background, handling boring administrative details. For months ago, Raymond called a major company-wide meeting. He announced the Elevation Collection, a complete rebrand and expansion. They designed 6 signature room concepts, everything coordinated. Custom furniture, lighting, textiles, stonework, decorative elements. Full packages that wealthy clients could purchase and customize. He'd already secured advance commitments worth several $1,000,000. The official launch was scheduled for 10 weeks out. It required coordination with 23 different contractors. Some I'd worked with for over a decade. Others were newer relationships I'd spent months cultivating carefully. Antonio's workshop would be producing over 80 custom furniture pieces. The Kowalskis were handling stonework for bathrooms and accent walls across all 6 room concepts. Priya's studio was creating fabrics in 11 custom colorways. Felix was designing signature lighting for each concept. Graham was coordinating imported hardware and fixtures from 5 different countries. I had the entire operation organized in my mind. The timeline, the sequence, the backup plans for inevitable problems. Because problems always emerged. Always. Nobody asked me how I planned to manage it. They just assumed it would happen because it always did. 3 weeks after that announcement, Raymond called me into his office. "Lily, we're restructuring your position," he said while studying his computer screen instead of looking at me. "Restructuring how?" "We've hired someone new to manage contractor relations. Someone with experience in large-scale project coordination and vendor management. You'll be transitioning to a support role, helping with general administrative needs." "General administrative needs," I repeated slowly. "You know, clerical work, whatever's required. You've done solid work here, but we're scaling up significantly. We need someone with a more sophisticated approach to contractor management." Something cold settled in my chest. What about the elevation collection? I've been coordinating all 23 contractors. The new person will take over. You'll brief them on everything. Brief them on what exactly? There's nothing documented. He looked up then, confusion crossing his face. What do you mean nothing's documented? I mean, I've been managing all the relationships personally. The contact information, the communication preferences, the history with each contractor, the specific protocols each one requires. None of it exists in your systems. He stared at me. Why not? Because that's how Lorraine did it before me. That's how she trained me. You never asked for anything different. You just said, handle it, so I handled it. He waved his hand dismissively. Then you'll explain everything to the new person. Simple enough. It wasn't simple at all, but I nodded and left his office. The new person started the following Monday. His name was Elliot. He'd worked at 4 other companies, all larger than Altitude. He used words like optimization and streamlining and systematic vendor management protocols in every conversation. He asked me for the contractor database on his first day. There isn't one, I told him. He laughed. There has to be. There doesn't. He stopped laughing. How have you been managing 23 contractors without a database? Personal relationships and memory. That's insane. That's not a system. It's the system that's worked for 13 years. I spent 3 weeks trying to explain how everything functioned, but Elliot didn't want to listen. He wanted lists and spreadsheets and standardized processes. He wanted me to just hand him whatever he needed so he could take over efficiently. He didn't understand that you can't just call Antonio and demand status updates. You have to ask about his brothers first. You have to remember that his father just turned 75 and they threw a big celebration. You have to understand that the Kowalskis won't discuss pricing over email. They need to hear your voice, have a real conversation. Elliot didn't care about any of that. After 3 weeks, he told Raymond I was being deliberately uncooperative and withholding information. So there I was at the conference center, still technically employed but completely sidelined, watching Natalie deliver presentations, cleaning up her manufactured mess, being compared to her dog. I stood outside in the cold for 30 minutes. Then I got in my car and drove home 4 hours through winding mountain roads, alone with my thoughts. Monday morning arrived. I walked into Altitude at exactly 8 o'clock. I went straight to Raymond's office and placed a single piece of paper on his desk. This is my resignation. Effective immediately. He looked genuinely confused. What? Why? I'm done. That's all. Wait, if this is about what Natalie said at the conference. It's not about what she said. Well, not just that. I'm done being undervalued here. But the Elevation collection launches in 8 weeks. Elliot's still learning the systems. That's not my concern anymore. I turned and walked out. I packed up my small office. 13 years fit into 3 boxes. I carried them to my car and drove away. Thank you for staying with me this far. I know this might seem like just another workplace story, but what happened next changed everything. Before I continue, I want to ask you something. Drop your city or country in the comments. It means so much to know you're listening. Now let me tell you what happened after I left. I went home and slept for 14 hours straight. When I woke up, my son was sitting on the edge of my bed looking worried. Mom, why are you home? It's Tuesday. I'd slept through Monday night entirely. I sat up and rubbed my eyes. I quit my job, sweetheart. He was 19 now, home from his 2nd year of college for the break. Old enough to understand the implications. The place you've been at forever? Altitude. Yes. Why? Because they didn't respect me and I stayed way too long already. He hugged me without asking anything else. Just hugged me tightly. I spent that entire week at home. I deep cleaned the entire house, organized closets I'd been ignoring for years, cooked actual meals instead of grabbing whatever was quick. I slept late. I didn't check my phone constantly. The silence felt strange after 13 years of waking up thinking about project timelines and which contractor needed a call that day. My phone rang constantly during that first week. I didn't answer. 17 calls from Raymond. 12 from Elliot. Even several from other people at Altitude. I let every single one go to voicemail. The messages started out polite. Lily, please call us back. We need to discuss your transition properly. Then they got more urgent. Lily, we really need your help with the contractor contacts. Please respond as soon as possible. Then desperate. Lily, the Elevation collection is in serious jeopardy. We'll pay you consulting rates. Name your price. I deleted them all without responding. On Friday afternoon, someone knocked on my door. I looked through the window. Elliot. He looked awful, shirt wrinkled, hair disheveled, dark circles under his eyes. I almost didn't open the door, but curiosity won out. What do you want? I asked through the still closed door. Please, Lily. Just talk to me for 5 minutes. I opened it but didn't invite him in. Just stood in the doorway. Everything's falling apart, he said immediately. I can't locate any of the contractors. The files don't exist anywhere in the system. The few phone numbers I've managed to find, when I call them, nobody knows who I am. They keep asking for you specifically. That's unfortunate. Please just give me the contact list. That's all I need. I'll figure out the rest myself. There is no contact list. His face flushed red. Stop lying. You have to have something written down somewhere. Nobody coordinates 23 contractors and keeps it all in their head. That's not possible. I did it. For 13 years. That's insane. That's not how professionals operate. I shrugged. Maybe not. But that's how I operated. And it worked perfectly fine for 13 years. Raymond will pay you whatever you want. Just help us. The launch is in 7 weeks. I'm not interested in helping. You're really going to let the entire company fail out of spite? I'm going to let Raymond deal with the consequences of his own decisions. Have a good day, Elliot. I closed the door. He stood there for several more minutes before finally leaving. The following week, I started getting calls from the contractors themselves. Antonio called first. Lily, what's happening? Some man called me yesterday asking about the furniture pieces for Elevation. He was rude. Didn't even ask how I was doing or how my family was. Just demanded to know about production schedules and pricing like I was some kind of vendor he could boss around. I don't work there anymore, Antonio. Silence on the other end. Then, you left Altitude? I did. But who will I work with now? I don't know. They hired someone new. But honestly, Antonio, maybe it's time to find other clients. Altitude doesn't treat people well. He sighed heavily. They never treated me well. They treated you well and you treated me well. That's why I stayed. We talked for another 30 minutes about his family, his workshop, possibilities for his future. When we hung up, I felt lighter somehow. Priya called the next day. Then Felix. Then Graham. Then the oldest Kowalski brother. All asking the same questions. What happened? Who is this new person calling them? Where did I go? I told them all the same thing, I'd left. They should do whatever was best for their own businesses. By the 3rd week, none of them were answering Altitude's calls anymore. My phone rang at 6 in the morning on a Wednesday. Raymond. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Lily. His voice sounded strained, exhausted. Raymond. We need to talk. I don't think we do. Please just come in once. Let's discuss this like adults. There's nothing to discuss. I resigned. You accepted it. I'm asking you to reconsider. We'll triple your salary. We'll give you any title you want. We'll make Elliot report to you instead of the other way around. I don't want any of that. Then what do you want? I thought about it. About Natalie's laugh. About being on my knees with a napkin soaking up spilled coffee while 52 people watched. About Raymond sitting there grinning while his daughter humiliated me. I want to spend time with my son. I want to wake up without dreading my day. I want to work somewhere I'm actually valued, not just used. We value you. I see that now. We made a mistake. You made many mistakes, Raymond. For a very long time. I'm done fixing them for you. The Elevation collection will fail without you. We'll lose everything we've invested. That sounds like your problem, not mine. He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, harder, colder. You're destroying this company out of spite because of one comment Natalie made. That's incredibly petty and unprofessional. Something hot flashed through me. One comment. Raymond, you restructured my entire position after 13 years of me keeping your operation running. You brought in someone to replace me without ever once asking how I actually did what I did. You just assumed it would all keep functioning even after you pushed me aside. And then your daughter compared me to her dog while I was on the floor cleaning up her mess. And you sat there laughing. So no, this isn't about one comment. This is about 13 years of being invisible. 13 years of not being seen or appreciated. I hung up. My hands were shaking, but it felt good. Really good. 4 days later, Priya called me. Lily, I got a very strange call today from a lawyer representing Altitude. They claimed I'm contractually obligated to fulfill orders for the Elevation collection. But I never signed any contract with Altitude. I only worked with you based on trust. That's because there are no contracts, I told her. Raymond kept everything informal to avoid legal fees and complications. He can't force you to do anything. That's what I thought. I just wanted to verify with you first. You don't owe them anything, Priya. Nothing at all. She laughed. Good. Because that Elliot person was so unpleasant. I have plenty of other work opportunities now anyway. Over the next few days, I heard similar stories from other contractors. Altitude was attempting to pressure them legally, but there was nothing to enforce. No signed agreements, no documentation, just years of handshake deals and personal relationships that died the moment I walked out that door. 5 weeks after I quit, an article appeared in one of the industry trade publications. Luxury design firm Altitude Design Group cancels major collection launch. The article discussed production failures and contractor problems. It mentioned disappointed clients demanding refunds for advance deposits. It estimated the company's losses in the millions. I read it twice. Felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt. Just nothing. My son came home and found me on the couch with my laptop. What are you doing? He asked. Looking at job postings. Already? Money doesn't last forever, sweetheart. I need to work eventually. He sat down next to me. Are you going to find another place like Altitude? No. I'm going to find somewhere that actually values people who work there. Somewhere that sees what I can do and appreciates it. Good, he said. You deserve that. I smiled. He was right. I did deserve that. 3 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but it wasn't an Altitude exchange, so I picked up. Hello, is this Lily Preston? Yes. My name is Veronica Ashton. I run a company called Bridge Partners. We connect independent artisans and small manufacturers with design firms and architects who'll treat them fairly. I heard about you through Antonio. He spoke very highly of your work. I sat up straighter. Oh. He said you spent 13 years building genuine relationships with contractors across multiple industries. That you understood not just the business side but the human side. That contractors trusted you completely. Is that accurate? I suppose it is. I'd like to meet with you. We're expanding our operations and we need someone who can manage contractor relationships the right way. Not just contracts and databases but real relationships. Would you be interested in discussing it? I thought about Lorraine all those years ago telling me to keep everything in my head to make myself irreplaceable. But maybe there was a better way. Maybe I could build something where the relationships mattered but weren't held hostage. Yes, I said. I'd be interested. We met the following week. Veronica's operation was smaller than Altitude but growing rapidly. She introduced me to her team, 9 people all around my age or older, all serious about their work. She explained their mission. Helping small workshops and family operations connect with clients who would treat them fairly and pay them properly. Too many design firms exploit these artisans, she said. They demand fast work, low prices, no contracts to protect the makers. We want to do it differently. Fair agreements, reasonable prices, long-term relationships built on mutual respect. That sounds good, I said carefully. Antonio told me what happened at your previous company. The way they treated you. That won't happen here. Everyone on this team is valued. We're building something together, not using people up and throwing them away. He offered me a position. The salary was less than Altitude had been paying, but not dramatically so. The title was Director of Artisan Relations. I'd work with contractors and craftspeople building relationships. But this time, everything would be documented properly, protected, not just living in my head where it could disappear. I accepted immediately. On my last day before starting the new job, I took my son out for dinner at a small Italian place near our house. We ordered too much food and talked about everything and nothing. I'm proud of you, Mom, he said suddenly. For what? For leaving. For not letting them treat you badly anymore. A lot of people would have stayed. I stayed for way too long. But you left eventually. That counts. We finished eating and walked home slowly. The evening was warm, the streets quiet. I felt lighter than I had in years. Starting at Bridge Partners felt right from the very first day. Veronica introduced me to contractors they already worked with. I reached out to Antonio, Priya, Felix, Graham, the Kolskis. They were all thrilled to work together again, this time through a company that would treat them fairly. Within 3 months, Bridge Partners signed formal agreements with all 23 workshops I'd spent years building relationships with. Real agreements with fair terms that protected everyone. I heard through Antonio that Altitude was struggling terribly. The Elevation Collection failure had severely damaged their reputation. Large design firms were canceling partnership agreements. Raymond had to lay people off. They're trying to sell the entire company, Antonio told me. Nobody wants to buy it though. Not after everything that happened. I didn't ask more questions. Didn't need to. 7 months into working at Bridge Partners, I was sitting at my desk when Veronica walked over with her phone. You need to see this, she said, showing me an article. The headline read, Altitude Design Group acquired in distress sale. The buyer was a large furniture manufacturer that specialized in mass production. Cheap materials, fast turnaround, nothing like what Altitude used to create. The sale price was barely enough to cover their debts. That's Raymond's company, I said quietly. I know. Antonio told me about what happened there. About why you left. I handed her phone back. It's in the past now. Still must feel like something seeing it end that way. I thought about it. Mostly I feel sad for the innocent people who worked there and lost their jobs because of Raymond's poor decisions. She nodded. We're hiring, you know. If any of them reach out to you, send them my way. That afternoon I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in months. Elliot. Lily, I know I don't have any right to ask you for anything, but I just lost my job and I'm trying to figure out what to do next. Could we talk? Not about Altitude. About how you built relationships with contractors. I realize now I didn't understand what you were actually doing. I'd like to learn. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore it. But I remembered being 31 and desperate for work. I remembered Lorraine taking time to teach me even though she was retiring and didn't have to. I wrote back, call me tomorrow afternoon. We talked for over an hour. He apologized for how he'd treated me, for not listening, for thinking his impressive resume made him better at the work than someone who'd been doing it for years. I thought it was all about systems and processes, he said. I didn't realize it was about people. About actually caring whether Antonio's father just turned 75. About remembering that the Kowalskis don't like negotiating over email. I thought those details were just small talk wasting time. They're not small talk. They're the actual work. I see that now. Too late, obviously. It's not too late. You just need to start over with a different mindset. I didn't offer him a job, but I gave him advice. Told him which companies might be hiring. Explained how to build relationships properly from the ground up. When we hung up, I felt good about it. Not because I'd forgiven everything, but because helping someone learn felt better than holding on to anger. Spring arrived. Bridge Partners kept growing steadily. We signed 18 new contractor partnerships. Veronica promoted me to Senior Director of Artisan Relations. My son finished his second year with excellent grades and started talking about potentially changing his major to something he was more passionate about. One evening in late April, my phone rang. Unknown number again. I answered. Hello. Lily. I recognized the voice immediately. Natalie. What do you want? I asked carefully. I know you probably don't want to talk to me. I understand why. But I wanted to call and apologize for what I said at the conference. It was cruel and completely unnecessary, and I've thought about it constantly since everything fell apart. I didn't respond. Just waited. My father lost everything. The company, our savings, all of it. We had to sell our house. I had to move back in with my grandmother. I'm working retail now, trying to help pay bills. I'm sorry that happened to your family, I said. And I meant it. Not because I forgave her, but because I didn't want anyone to suffer that much. My father told me recently what you actually did at Altitude. How you held all those relationships together for 13 years. How none of it was documented anywhere. How when you left, it all disappeared. I didn't understand at the time. I thought you were just someone who did basic administrative work. I didn't realize you were the person keeping everything running. Most people didn't realize. That's not an excuse for how I treated you. What I said was horrible. I compared you to my dog in front of everyone. I humiliated you and my father just laughed. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm so sorry, Lily. I really am. I sat down on my couch. This wasn't what I'd expected. Thank you for saying that. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know that I understand now what I did, and that I'm genuinely sorry. We talked for a few more minutes. He asked what I was doing now. I told her about Bridge Partners, about the work we were doing. She sounded genuinely happy for me. When we hung up, I felt something shift inside me. Not quite forgiveness, but something close to it. Like I could finally close that chapter completely and move forward. Summer arrived hot and bright. My son and I took a trip together, just the two of us. 4 days at the coast. We swam and ate too much seafood and stayed up late talking about his future and his dreams. What do you think I should do, Mom? He asked one night while we sat on the beach watching the sunset. About changing my major? I think you should do whatever makes you feel excited about what's coming next. Not scared or uncertain, excited. He smiled. That's good advice. You followed it yourself, right? When you left Altitude. Eventually. I should have followed it years earlier. But you followed it when you were ready. That matters too. He was wise, my son. Wiser than I'd been at his age. When we got back from the trip, there was a letter waiting for me. Official looking, from a business address I didn't recognize. My heart sank. Had Altitude decided to sue me for something? I opened it carefully. It wasn't from Altitude. It was from an organization I'd never heard of. The National Guild for Artisan Trade Relations. They were hosting a conference in the fall about building sustainable relationships between designers and craftspeople. They'd heard about my work at Bridge Partners. They wanted to know if I'd be interested in speaking about building contractor relationships based on trust and mutual respect. Me. Speaking at a conference. I showed Veronica the next day. He grinned. You should absolutely do it. You're excellent at this work. Other people should learn from you. I'm not a speaker. I just do the work. The best speakers are the ones who actually do the work, not the ones who just talk about it. I agreed to speak. Spent the next 3 months terrified and excited in equal measure. The conference was in a city 9 hours away. Large venue, several hundred people. I'd never done anything remotely like it. The night before my presentation I couldn't sleep. Kept going over what I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it. When I walked onto that stage the next morning, my hands were shaking. But then I started talking. About Antonio and his brothers. About Priya and her studio of artisans. About the Kowalskis and their grandfather's legacy. About what it means to treat people like human beings instead of just resources to be exploited. The audience listened. Really listened. When I finished, they applauded for a long time. Afterward, at least 40 people came up to talk to me. Asked questions, wanted advice, handed me their contact information, told me their own stories. One woman waited until everyone else had left. She was older, maybe 70. I used to do work like yours, she said. For 32 years. Then I retired. Watching you speak brought it all back. The good parts, I mean. The relationships, the trust, the satisfaction of helping people connect. Thank you for reminding me why I loved that work. I hugged her, this stranger who understood exactly what I did and why it mattered. Flying home, I thought about the past year and a half. About everything that had changed. About how being compared to a dog had somehow led to this. To work I loved, to respect I'd earned, to a future that felt bright instead of heavy. My son picked me up from the airport. How did it go? He asked. Really well. Better than I expected. I knew it would. You're good at what you do, Mom. Finally, other people are seeing it too. At Bridge Partners, things continued growing. We expanded into 3 new regions, hired 11 more people. Veronica made me a full partner in the company, actual ownership, not just a title. My name on the letterhead. One afternoon in late fall, I was reviewing some partnership agreements when my phone buzzed. A message from a number I didn't have saved but recognized immediately. Raymond. Lily, I know I have no right to contact you, but I wanted to let you know that I've been thinking a lot over this past year about my mistakes. About how I treated you and others. I'm working with a small furniture maker now, just helping in their workshop, learning the craft side of things I should have learned decades ago. Anyway, I wanted to say thank you for the 13 years you gave to Altitude. You deserved so much better than how we treated you. I hope you're doing well. I read it 3 times. Didn't respond, but didn't delete it either. Just left it there. By winter, my son had decided to change his major to something he was truly passionate about: architectural history. He'd be staying in school an extra year, but he was excited about it in a way I'd never seen before. We spent more time together whenever he was home. Cooking elaborate meals, watching old movies, talking about everything and nothing. "Are you scared?" I asked him one night. "About the extra year, about changing paths?" "A little. But mostly excited. Like you said, that's how you know it's right. You're going to do amazing things." "I learned from the best," he said, squeezing my hand. The year ended quietly. Bridge Partners closed out with the strongest numbers we'd ever had. Veronica threw a celebration dinner for the entire team at a beautiful restaurant downtown. We ate and laughed and toasted to what we'd built together. A company where people mattered, where relationships were genuine, where nobody had to keep everything in their head just to feel secure in their position. Because being replaceable wasn't the real threat. Being undervalued was. On the last day of the year, I sat down at my kitchen table and wrote a list. Not goals or resolutions. Just things I'd learned over the past 18 months. That staying somewhere that doesn't value you will eventually break something inside you. That walking away is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. That the relationships you build matter more than the systems you hide behind. That being underestimated can hurt, but it can also become fuel. That teaching someone who wronged you takes more strength than punishing them. That your worth isn't determined by how others see you, but by how you see yourself. I folded the list and tucked it into my journal. Didn't need to read it again. It was already part of me now. Natalie's dog might have learned to fetch in less than a week. But I spent 13 years learning how to build something real. How to create trust. How to see people as people, not just resources or tools or inconveniences. And when everything fell apart for Altitude, those relationships, that trust, that way of seeing people, it all came with me. They couldn't take it away because it was never theirs to begin with. It was always mine. The new year arrived cold and clear. I woke up on January 1st feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Genuine excitement about what was coming next. Bridge Partners had 3 major projects lined up for the first quarter. We were connecting a group of traditional weavers in the mountains with a high-end hotel chain that wanted authentic textiles for their new properties. We were helping a family of metal workers who specialized in hand-forged hardware connect with architects who appreciated their craftsmanship. We were building a network of sustainable furniture makers who could supply boutique retailers across the country. Real work. Meaningful work. Work that helped people build better lives. In February, I got a call from the National Guild again. They wanted me to serve on their advisory board, helping shape programs that would teach young people how to build ethical relationships in the design and manufacturing industries. "We need people like you," the director told me. "People who understand that business is about more than just transactions. It's about humanity." I accepted. In March, my son came home for spring break with exciting news. He'd been selected for a summer internship at a historic preservation society, working on documenting traditional building techniques. "It's because of you, Mom," he said. "Watching you rebuild your career, watching you stand up for yourself. It taught me that it's okay to pursue what you actually care about, not just what seems safe or impressive." "I'm so proud of you," I told him. "Right back at you," he said. One afternoon in April, I was meeting with Antonio at his workshop. We were discussing a new collaboration between his carpentry business and 3 other craftspeople, creating complete custom furniture collections that Bridge Partners would help market to designers and architects. "You know," Antonio said as we finished up, "that day you called me after you left Altitude, I was so worried. I thought, what am I going to do without Lily? She's been my connection to good work for over a decade." "I was worried too," I admitted. "But this," he gestured around his workshop at the new pieces he was creating, "this is better. Real partnerships. Fair agreements. Respect." He gave me that, Lily. Not just once but twice. Driving home from his workshop, I thought about that. About how the worst thing that had happened to me at Altitude, being humiliated, being pushed aside, being compared to a dog, had led to the best thing. To building something better not just for myself but for all the people I worked with. In May, Veronica called an all-staff meeting at Bridge Partners. "I want to share some exciting news," she said. "We've been approached by several organizations about franchising our model, helping other people in other regions build similar companies that connect artisans with ethical clients. And I want Lily to lead that expansion." Everyone applauded. I felt my face flush. I don't know if I'm ready for that, I said after the meeting. Veronica smiled. A year and a half ago, you didn't know if you were ready to leave a job that was crushing your spirit. But you did it anyway. You're ready for this. He was right. I was ready. By summer, we'd begun working with groups in 4 other regions who wanted to replicate the Bridge Partners model. I spent my days on video calls, training new relationship managers, sharing everything I'd learned about building trust with contractors and craftspeople. This time I documented everything. Created training materials, wrote guidelines, developed systems. Not to make myself replaceable but to help others succeed. There's a difference. My son came home from his internship transformed. He talked excitedly about the traditional techniques he'd documented, the craftspeople he'd met, the history he'd helped preserve. I finally understand what you do, Mom, he said one evening. It's not just about business. It's about honoring the people who make beautiful things with their hands. It's about making sure they're treated well and paid fairly and respected for their skills. Exactly, I said. Exactly that. In August I got an unexpected email. The subject line read, "Thank you." It was from someone named Jessica Porter. She explained that she'd been working at Altitude when I left, in a junior design position. She'd lost her job when the company was sold, but she'd learned something important from watching what happened. "I saw how they treated you," she wrote. "I saw you leave. I saw the whole company collapse because they didn't understand that you were the foundation holding everything up. It taught me to value the people who do the invisible work, the ones who build relationships and keep things running. I just started my own small design practice and I'm building it differently because of what I learned from watching you. I wanted to say thank you." I wrote back immediately, offering to connect her with some of the artisans and craftspeople in our network. We ended up meeting for coffee the following week. She was talented and kind and determined to build something ethical. "The industry needs more people like you," I told her. "The industry needs more people like you," she countered. "People who refuse to be invisible anymore." September arrived with cooler weather and new possibilities. Bridge Partners had grown to 23 employees. We were working with over 60 artisan workshops across 7 regions. The franchise model was succeeding beyond our expectations. I was invited to speak at 2 more conferences. This time I wasn't nervous. I knew what I wanted to say. At the second conference, during the question and answer session, a young woman raised her hand. "I'm in a situation similar to what you described at your old company," she said. "I'm the only person who knows how certain systems work and they're treating me like I'm disposable. What should I do?" I thought carefully before answering. First, understand your value. Really understand it. Second, document what you know. Not to make yourself replaceable but to protect yourself and to help others if you decide to leave. Third, have an honest conversation about your worth. And fourth, be prepared to walk away if they won't respect you. Because staying somewhere that doesn't value you will cost you more than leaving ever could. She nodded, writing notes. After the session ended, she came up to talk to me privately. We spoke for 20 minutes. I gave her my contact information and told her to reach out if she needed advice. That night, lying in bed in my hotel room, I thought about all the people I'd connected with over the past year and a half. The contractors who trusted me. The young professionals learning to build ethical businesses. The other relationship managers learning to value human connection over cold efficiency. Ripples. That's what it was. One person standing up, walking away, rebuilding differently. It created ripples that reached people I'd never meet. October brought my son's 21st birthday. We celebrated with a small dinner party at our house. Just family and a few close friends. Watching him laugh and talk about his dreams for the future, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Everything I'd gone through, all the years of being undervalued, the humiliation at that conference, the fear of leaving, the hard work of rebuilding, it had all led here. To this moment. To freedom and respect and purpose. "Make a speech, Mom," my son said, raising his glass. "Oh, I don't think. Come on. You speak at conferences now. You can handle this." Everyone laughed and encouraged me. I stood up, glass in hand. "Hey, here's what I want to say. A couple of years ago I was in a very dark place professionally. I felt invisible, undervalued, stuck. And then something happened that forced me to make a choice. Keep accepting that treatment or walk away into uncertainty. I chose uncertainty. And it was terrifying. But it led to everything good that's happened since. So my advice to anyone who needs to hear it. Don't wait as long as I did. If you're somewhere that doesn't see your value, leave. Build something better. You deserve it. Everyone clinked glasses and drank. My son hugged me tightly. That was perfect, Mom. November arrived with early snow. Bridge Partners signed a major partnership with a national retail chain that wanted to feature ethically sourced, handcrafted goods in all their stores. It was exactly the kind of deal we'd been working toward. One that would provide steady, fair-paying work for dozens of artisan workshops. Veronica and I flew to their headquarters to finalize the agreement. Sitting in that conference room signing papers that would change lives for so many craftspeople, I felt a sense of accomplishment I'd never experienced at altitude. We did it, Veronica said as we left the building. We really did. On the flight home, I drafted an email to all the artisans in our network, letting them know about the new partnership. I wrote personally to each one, explaining what it would mean for their businesses, asking about their capacity and interest. Antonio wrote back immediately, "This is life-changing, Lily. Thank you for seeing us, for fighting for us, for building something that actually helps us thrive." Priya's response was similar. "I never imagined when you left altitude that it would lead to something this good. Thank you for not forgetting about us." One by one the responses came in. Gratitude, excitement, relief. These were people who'd spent years being squeezed by companies like Altitude, and now they had a real opportunity for sustainable, respectful work. December arrived too quickly. The year was ending, and what a year it had been. Bridge Partners had grown beyond anything we'd imagined. We'd helped connect over 200 projects between artisans and ethical clients. We'd trained 17 new relationship managers in other regions. We'd proven that business could be done differently, with humanity and respect at the center. My son finished his semester with perfect grades and came home for the holidays radiating happiness. "Best year of my life, Mom," he said. "What about you?" "Same, sweetheart. Definitely the same." On the last evening of the year, I sat alone in my living room with a cup of tea, reflecting on everything that had happened since that awful day at the conference center. Natalie's words still echoed sometimes. "My dog is literally smarter than you." But they didn't hurt anymore. Because I'd proven something far more important than whether I could fetch water bottles or clean up spills quickly. I'd proven that building real relationships matters. That treating people with dignity matters. That standing up for yourself matters. That walking away from toxicity, even when it's terrifying, can lead to something better than you ever imagined. Altitude Design Group was gone, sold off for parts, dissolved into a mass production company that bore no resemblance to what it once was. Raymond was working in someone else's workshop, finally learning the craft he'd spent decades exploiting. Natalie was rebuilding her life, hopefully learning that cruelty has consequences. Me. I was thriving. Building something meaningful. Helping others thrive. Finally, after 13 years of being invisible, I was seen. My phone buzzed. A text from Veronica. "Happy New Year, partner. Thank you for everything you've brought to this company. Here's to an even better year ahead." I smiled and typed back, "Thank you for seeing my value when others didn't. Here's to building more bridges." The clock struck midnight. I heard fireworks in the distance, neighbors celebrating. I raised my teacup in a silent toast to myself. To walking away. To starting over. To knowing your worth. To building something better. Natalie was right about one thing, her dog learned quickly. But speed isn't everything. Some things worth doing take time. Take patience. Take years of building trust and treating people well and understanding that business is ultimately about human beings, not just transactions. I spent 13 years learning those lessons. And when I left, those lessons came with me. They couldn't be taken away, couldn't be handed to someone else, couldn't be replaced by someone with an impressive resume who'd worked at bigger companies. Because relationships aren't transferable. Trust isn't downloadable. Respect isn't something you can just demand. It has to be earned, nurtured, protected. And I'd spent 13 years earning it with every single artisan I worked with. That was my real value. Not my ability to remember contact information or coordinate schedules. My value was in seeing people as people, in treating craftspeople with the dignity they deserved, in building bridges between talent and opportunity. Altitude never understood that. They thought I was just a coordinator, just someone doing simple administrative work. They thought anyone could do what I did. They learned the hard way how wrong they were. And I learned something too, that being underestimated can be a gift. Because when people don't see your value, they don't see you coming when you walk away. They don't understand what they're losing until it's already gone. I finished my tea and stood up, stretching. Tomorrow would be the first day of a new year, full of new possibilities. Bridge Partners had projects lined up for months. My son was pursuing his passion. I was speaking at 3 more conferences in the spring. Life was good. Really, truly good. As I turned off the lights and headed to bed, I thought one last time about that conference room, about being on my knees picking up water bottles, about the laughter, about Natalie's cruel comparison. And I smiled. Because that moment, as awful as it was, had set me free. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the best thing in disguise. Sometimes you need to be pushed to the absolute edge before you find the courage to jump. I jumped. And I didn't fall. I flew. Thank you so much for listening to my story all the way through. If this resonated with you, if you've ever felt invisible or undervalued at your work, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Share your city, your story, your experience. Let's build a community of people who know their worth. And if you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps me continue sharing stories like this one. Thank you again. I hope wherever you are, whatever you're facing, you know your worth. You know your value. And you know that sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. You deserve to be seen. You deserve to be valued. You deserve to work somewhere that appreciates not just what you do but who you are. Don't wait as long as I did to claim that for yourself. Life is too short to spend it being compared to someone's dog.